Hi, and welcome to the Learning Hub. In this tutorial, we'll be going through the 2018 Key Stage 2 National Curriculum Math Paper 1, Arithmetic. There are 36 questions in total, and we're going to spend some time and go through each and every one of them. So let's get right to it. Alright, so this is the first question. If you're asked to add these two numbers, so 39 and 673, to do that, you have to stack them one on top of the other, and then you add them. So it's usually best to start with the bigger number. So you could do 6, 7, 3, 5. So you add them all together, and you're gonna get and you add them from the right to the left. So 3 plus 9 is 12. So you write the 2, you carry forward the 1. So 7 plus 3 will give you 10, plus 1, and that's 11. So you put your 1, and then you carry forward the 1. And then you've got 6 plus 1, which is 7. So your final answer is 712. So let's move on to the next question. So this time around, you've got two fractions subtracting each other. So you've got 9 over 11 minus 4 over 11. And remember the rule, if the bases are the same, then you can just work out the top part. Right, so this is the same as just working out the 9 minus 4, and that gives you 5. Then you put your denominator in there. So your final answer is 5 over 11. All right. So question 3, 2 times 45. Again, to multiply, it's usually best to arrange them one on top of the other, and then you work it out from there. So we've got 45 times 2. Right, so now the 2 at the bottom is going to multiply the 5 and then multiply the 4. So 2 times 5 is 10. So you write down your 0 and then you carry forward your 1. And then 2 times 4 is 8. And then you add your 1 to it. And that gives you 9. That's one way of doing it. Another method of doing it is that you know that you're multiplying 45 by 2. Another way you can say it is putting or adding 2 45s. So you could do 45 plus 45, right? 45 added twice, and that will give you 5 plus 5 is 0, carry 1, 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 1, and that's 90. So you can also use this method, but I would say that this method works when the numbers you're working with are small. If you've got huge numbers like 128 times 215, it would be very impractical to use this method. So the multiplication is always the best method. So question 4, you've got 838 divided by 1. And this is really straightforward. I think it's a trick question, to be honest with you, because if you would recall, any number divided by 1 is itself. So 200 divided by 1 is equal to 200. 1000 divided by 1 is equal to 1000. A million divided by 1 is still equal to a million. So 838 divided by 1 will give you 838, same number. So you've got 99 divided by 11. And remember, for division, you could write it as a fraction, or you could use the long division sign here as well. That also represents division. So we're dividing 99 by 11. So 11 goes into 99 how many times? That's what you need to ask yourself. I know if we had 90 over 10, we know that 10 would have gone into 99 times. So if you've got 99 and then you've got 11, it's similar, because 11 times 1 is 11, 11 times 2 is 22, times 3 is 33, so it goes on to 9. So 11 times 9 is 99. So our final answer is 9. So you can just use this just to help you figure this one out. All right, so with the next question, we've got 5 times 4 times 10, right? So you're multiplying 3 numbers together. The best way to do it is to multiply 2 first, and then you add the third number to it. So we could multiply 5 times 4, which is 20, and then we add the 10 to it, and that gives us 200. So our final answer is 200. Alternatively, you could have done 4 times 10, which is 40, and then times 5, and that will still give you 200. So I did it this way. Yeah. So whichever way you do it, or you could do 5 times 10 and then you multiply it by 4. Remember, because you're multiplying the numbers together, they are commutative, so you can interchange them and you should still get the same answer. All right, so let's have a look at question 7. So you've got 7,064 minus 502. So again, you stack them one on top of the other, making sure that all the columns match, the right columns. So the ones, the tens, the hundreds all match. So it's going to be like this. Then you put your subtraction sign there, and then you work it out. Right, so I'm working it out from the right to your left. So 4 minus 2 will give you 2. 6 minus 0 is 6. 0 minus 5, you can't take away 5 from 0. So you need to borrow 1 from this, and then you add it to it, and then this becomes 10. And then you've got a remainder of 6 over there. So now you've got 10 minus 5, which is 5. And now you've got your remainder, which is 6 here. Okay, so your final answer is 6, 5, 6, 2. So let's go on to question 8. Right, so if you've got 6 raised to the power 2 times 10, how do you work it out? Now, what does this mean, 6 raised to the power 2? Well, it means that 6 is multiplying itself 2 times, right? So plus 10. So if you're able to break it down like this, then now it makes it easier to go on with it, right? To work it out, because you know 6 times 6 is 36 plus 10, and that'll give you 46. All right, so now let's go on to the next question. So this time around we're adding 2 numbers, but these aren't the ordinary numbers we know. These are decimal numbers, because they have decimals in them. So to add them together, again, you arrange them and make sure that they match. But this time around, you have to use the decimal to match. So you have to make sure that the decimals are in the same column. So this will be 56.38, 56.38, and then 24.7. So you notice that I used the decimals to match, to make sure that my numbers match. Then you put your line underneath, and then your plus. So a plus nothing, you can put a 0 here. A plus nothing or 0 is a. 3 plus 7 is 10. So you put down your 0, then you carry forward your 1. So now you've got 6 plus 4, which is 10, plus 1, which is 11. So again, you write your 1, and then you carry forward your 1. So you've got 5 plus 2, which is 7, plus 1, and that's 8. And then don't forget to put back your decimal. So your final answer is 81.08. That's it. For this one, we are told that a certain number minus 10 will give us 298. So what number is it? So to work out a question like this, when you're given the final answer but asked to find a number that was added or subtracted to find that answer, what you do is to pick your final answer, so 298, and then whatever number you have available, right, you pick that number, but you change the sign. So you'd see that for this one, we've got a negative 10 or a minus 10, right? So to find this, the number we're looking for, we're going to change the sign for this one. So we put the 10 in there, but instead of subtracting, we add. Then we put our line under, and then work it out. So a plus 0 is a. 9 plus 1 is 10. So you write down your 0, you carry forward your 1, and then 1 plus 2 is 3. So our final answer is 308. All right, so question 11, you've got 270 divided by 3. So you just need to ask yourself, 3 goes into 270 how many times? Well, it's a big number when you look at it, but you can just put away the 0 and then just work with 27, right? And that makes it easier. You know from your timetable that 3 goes into 27 9 times. So you put on your 9 and then you add your 0 to it. So your final answer is 90. Next question. So you've got 5,400 divided by 9. So again, you use the same method. 5,400 is a big number, but we can ignore the 2 zeros for now and then just work with 54. So 9 goes into 54 6 times. So you put on your 6 and then you can add back the 2 zeros. So that'll be 600. Next question. So you've got 60 divided by 15. So again, 60 divided by 15. Right, so you're being asked how many times that 15 go into 60. Well, to work it out, you can just multiply, look at the multiplication table for 15. But I know that the standard multiplication table is usually 1 to 12. So with this one, you kind of have to figure it out yourself. Yeah. So what you can do is to just think about 15 and just double it. So 15 doubled will give you 30, right? Now, this 30 is half of 60. So that means that if we double it again, we're going to get 60, right? So if we double it again, 15 again, so 15, that'll give us 30, right? So that means that 15 goes into 64 times. Or we could do 15, and that's 30, and then we add another 15, and that gives us 45, and then another 15, and that gives us 6. So now, with question 14, you've been asked to find out the final answer when 855 is subtracted from 5,776. So this is a simple question. So again, remember to write it down in the proper format, one stacked on top of the other in a columnar form with the units matching correctly. So this is how it's going to be. We put our subtraction sign there and then our line underneath. So 6 minus 5 will give us 1. 7 minus 5 will give us 2. 7 minus 8 is not possible because 8 is bigger than 7. So we need to borrow 1 from this, and we get a remainder of 4 here, and then we get 17 here. 17 minus 8 will give us 9, and then we've got our 4 left. So our final answer is 4,921. So let's go on to question 15. So we've got 3,050,020 is equal to 3 numbers added together, but we know 2 of the numbers, so we are asked to find the third number. So this is the same way of saying that 3 million plus 20 plus a certain number should give you 3,050,020. I mean, this question is fairly straightforward, and I'm going to use 2 methods to work it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is to just break this down into its various parts. When you look at this figure, you can see that you can break it down into 3 million and then 50,000 and then 20, right? Because when you add all of this together, you should get 3,050,020, right? So now, when you look at the next side of the equation, you can see that we are told that this amount, 3,050,020, is made up of 3 million, which is this one, and then 20, which is that one, but a certain number is missing. So automatically, we know that the missing number is 50,000. So that's one way of doing it. All right. Another way of doing it is, remember what we did in an earlier question when we had something similar, is to pick out the total number. So we've got 3,050,020, right? And then you pick the numbers in the numbers that are added to find this number. And what you do is you make sure you do the opposite to them. So you can see that 3 million is a positive number, or is added. 20 is also added. So we can add the two of them together and then subtract it from this. Right. Remember what we said. When the signs are positive, when we're working out, we interchange it to negative. So we know that this number is also positive because there's no negative in front of it. So when we add this number and that number together, we're going to get 3,020,000. So because the signs in front of them are positive, we subtract. Right, so if you subtract this, you're going to get 0 minus 0 is 0, 2 minus 2 is 0, 0, 0, 0. Now 5 minus 0 is 5, 0 minus 0 is 0, and then 3 minus 3 is 0. So your final answer, again, is 50,000. So you can cancel this one and then write this as your final answer. For question 16, we've got 10 minus 5.4. So one number is an ordinary number and another is a decimal. So to work this out, really, what you need to do is to again stack them, write them in the proper format, and then stack them. However, when you're matching them, you need to make sure that the units match, the right units match. So for this one, it's going to be like this. 5, because this 5 is ones, and this is also ones, so it should match. It's going to be 5.4. And if you would recall, any number can be written as 0.0. So if you've got 10, 10 is the same as 0.0, 10.0. If you've got 20, 20 is the same as 20.0. So you can add a 0.0 to it there like I've done. And then you put your line underneath and then your subtraction. And then now you work it out. So 0 minus 4 is not possible. So we have to borrow from the next number. But the next number is also 0. So we have to move on to the next number to borrow. So we borrow 1 from here. And then that comes in. Then this becomes 10. And then this becomes 0 because we borrowed 1 and then there's nothing left. Although we've got 10 here, this is where we need to get to, or this is the number that needs the borrowing to be done for. So that means that we still need to borrow from here again. So this is now 10. So if we borrow 1 from it, we are left with 9, and then this becomes 10. All right, so 10 minus 4 will give you 6. Then you put your decimal sign there. And now for this column, you've got 9 minus 5, which is 4. So your final answer is 4.6 because the next number is 0. So now you've got two fractions, right? So 5 over 7 and 13 over 21. Now, you'd see that this 5 over 7 is in its simplest form. However, this one is not in its simplest form. It's not in its simplest form because we can further reduce it to a simpler number. When you look at the numerator, which is 3, and then the denominator, which is 21, you can see that you can cancel out or you can reduce it by 3, right? So 3 goes into itself 1 time, and then it goes into 21 7 times. So you've got 1 over 7. So you can rewrite this as 1 over 7, and that's the same thing really. So now that we've got 1 over 7, we can see that the denominators or the bottom numbers are the same for each of them. So like we did for an earlier question, if the bottom numbers are the same, we can just add the top numbers. So 5 plus 1 is 6, and then you add your bottom number. So it's 6 over 7, final answer. All right, so for question 18, you've got 0.1 divided by 100. And the way we do this, before I do this, I'm going to explain something quickly here. So if you've got 10 and you multiply it by 100, what you're doing essentially is to add 2 zeros to it. So you're multiplying, so you're adding zeros, the zeros to it. So you get 1,000, and then with the same 10, if you divide by 100, then this time around you are taking out the zeros. This will cancel, and then you've got a decimal point moving to that. So you've got 0.1 for a question like this. right? The reason we do this is because 10 is the same as 10.0, like we said earlier on. So if you're taking out the zeros, you move the decimal point 1 and 2, right? Because we're taking out 2 zeros. So you move the decimal point 1 and 2. And that's how we got 0.1, right? Because it's a decimal here, and then we add a 0 to it. So we get 0.1. Now that we understand that, we can go on to this question. So 0.1 divided by 100. So because we are dividing by 100, then we are taking out the zeros, right? And another way we can say this is we are moving the decimal points to the left, right? So because 100 has 2 zeros, we move the decimal point twice. So 1 and then 2. So our decimal point stays here, and then we fill this one with a placeholder, which is 0. So our final answer will be 0.001. Right, so this is the first 0, and that's the second 0, and our 1. So that's a 1, 2, 1. Then we put a 0 in front of it because of the decimal. All right, so for question 19, we've been asked to find 3/4 of 1,000. So I'm going to use two methods really to work this out. So the first method, I'm just going to label it 1. You've been asked to find 3/4, but you can break it down. You can find 1/4, right? So what is 1/4 of? And then the of means multiplication. So of 1,000. So to find 1/4 of it, basically it means to divide this 1,000 into 4 parts. So if you divide 1,000 into 4 parts, you get each part being 250. So 250, so 250, 250, 250, 250. Remember, when you add this 2, you get 500. When you add this 2, you get 500. So both of them together will give you 1,000. Right. So we know that 1/4 times or of 1,000 is 250. So if 1/4 of it is 250, then 3/4 will be 3 of these. So you could do 250 times 3, or you could do 250, 250, 250, all added together, right? And that'll give you 750. So 3/4 of 1,000 is 750. So that's one method done. Now we're going to go on to method 2. So for method 2, you've got 3/4, and the of represents multiplication. So 3/4 times 1,000, and then you work it out from there. So 3/4 times 1,000 is the same as 3 times 1,000 over 4, right? So when you look at the you see that you can't cancel out 3 and 4, but when you look at 4 and 1,000, you can cancel out, right? You could use 2, for example. So 2 can go into 4 2 times and go into 10 5 times, and then you add the 2 zeros, so that's 500. But you can also see that 2 can still go into 500. It can go into 2. 2 can go into 5 2 times, which will give you 4. 2 times 2 is 4, and then there's a remainder of 1. You add it to the 10. You add it to the 0 to get 10, and 2 goes into 10 5 times, and then you add the remainder 0. So you will get 3 times 250. And that will give you the same thing again, 750. So let's go on to question 20. So with question 20, you've been asked to multiply 785 by 23. So how you go about it is the arrangement has already been done for you, thankfully. So you pick the numbers at the bottom. Each one of them is going to multiply the numbers at the top. So this multiplies all of that, and then this multiplies all of that. All right. So 3 times 5 is 15. So you add your 5, you carry forward your 1. 8 times 3 is 24. You add your 1 to it, and then you get your 5. You carry forward your 2. And then 3 times 7 is 21. And then you add your 2 to it. So you get 23. And then to move on to the next one, you put a dash or a 0 here as a placeholder, and then you start working it out from this side. So 2 times 5 is 10. So again, you write your 0, you carry forward your 1. 2 times 8 is 16. So you add your 1 to it, and that becomes 17. So you write your 7, and then you carry forward your 1. And then 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 2 is 14. So you add your 1 to it, and you get your 15. And then you put a line underneath, and then you add it all together. So you've got 5 plus nothing is 5. 5 plus 0 is 5. 3 plus 7 is 10. So you write your 0, you carry forward your 1. Now you've got 2 plus 5, which is 7, plus 1, which is 8, and then your 1. So your final answer will be 18,055. So let's go on to question 21. So you've been asked to find 20% of 1,200. So there are two ways you can go about it. So the first method is to find 10% of 1,200. And to find 10% of any number, you just pick that number and then you take away 0 from it. So 10% of 1,200 will give you 120. So if you know that 10% of 1,200 will give you 120, then 20%, to find 20%, you just need to double this, right? So you just do 120 plus 120, and that'll give you 240. And that's your final answer, so 240. So that's one method. The second method really is just to work out 20% of 1,200. And 20% can be rewritten as 20 over 100 times 1,200. Remember, the off here means times, right? So that's it. So 20% written as a fraction is 20 over 100 times 1,200. So you can simplify this by getting rid of the zeros, or you can cancel out the zeros. Because when you think about it, you can divide 20 by 10 and then divide 100 by 10, right? And that's like canceling it out. And then you can do the same for this one. So you'd see that you're going to get 2 here times 120. So you work it out, and then it gives you the same answer. Let's go on to question 22. So you've been asked to find the square root of 645 divided by 43. So to work it out, you need to ask yourself, using the long division, you need to ask yourself, can 43 go into 6? That's not possible because 6 is smaller than 43. So you move on to the next number and add the 2 together. So 64. So can 43 go into 64? Yes, it can. How many times? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Well, I know that 43 times 2 will be 86, which is higher than this. So it's going to be 1. So I'm going to have 43 here, right? So what I do is subtract and then find out my final answer. So my final answer will be 1, 2, or 21. So the next thing to do is to add the next number to it. So that becomes 20. That becomes 215. So now can 43 go into 215? Yes, 43 can go into 215 5 times. And let's work it out on the side and see. So 5 times 3 is 15. So you write your 5, you carry forward your 1. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. So we know that is 5, and then it's 215. And we've got 0, 0, 0. So we've got no remainder. So our final answer is 15. So you've got 0.5 times 28. So again, there are 2 ways you can go about this, right? So the first one is, 1 times any number is itself. So 1 times 28 is 28. Right, now 0.5 means what? It means half. So now, what is 0.25 of 28? It just means you're being asked to find half of 28. So to find half of 28, right? It's, it's just to have to pick your 28 and divide it by 2, right? And that will give you 14, right? 28 divided by 2 will give you 14, right? So that's one method, right? So finding half of this number. Now, the second method is just to use the absolute values, really. So you can just multiply. So you know this is one decimal place. So maybe you can write it on the side, one decimal place, but you just pick the absolute values without the decimal. So and then multiply it by 28. So we're going to get 28 times 5. So we know that 5 times 8 is 40. So you write your 0, and then you carry forward your 40, your 4. 5 times 2 is 10. So 10 plus 4 is 14. So we've got 140. Now remember our decimal place that we wrote here. One decimal place, right, that we took away. So we need to put it back. So to put it back, remember any number is 0.0. Any number is 0.0. So to put back the decimal, we move one decimal place because it's one decimal. So our final answer will be 14.0 or 14. So that's another method you can go about. If you've got a question like this, for question 24, you've got two fractions being added together, but the bases are not the same. So to work this out, really what we have to do is to find the LCM, or the lowest common multiple. Now the LCM for 2 and 5 will be 10. And this is how we work it out. So we find the multiples of 2 and 5. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then it goes on. And then the multiples of 5, we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, and then it goes on and on. Now we look for the first numbers that are appearing on both sides, right? And that will be our lowest common multiple. So you'd see that we've got 10 here and then 10 here, right? So 10 becomes our lowest common multiple, right? So the next thing we do is to work out for each of them. So for 2, we know that 2 goes into 10 5 times, right? So 2 times 5 is 10. And then we multiply it by the numerator of this fraction. So 5 times 1 will give us 5. And then we look at the next. So let's put on our plus and then move on to the next one. So with 5 goes into 10 2 times. So we pick our 2 and then we multiply by the numerator, which is 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. So our final answer will be 5 plus 2, which is 7 over 10. So 7 over 10 is our final answer. So now, for question 25, we've got two fractions adding together, but one of them is a mixed fraction. So we've got one whole number 3 over 4 plus 3 over 4. So I'm going to use two methods to work it out again. So again, with this one, you can put, because the bases are the same, you can just add the numerators, right? Because the denominators are the same. But we've got a mixed fraction. We've got a whole number here. So we can just put the whole number on the side. We don't touch it. And then we just work out the numerators. So 3 plus 3 will give us 6. Now 6 over the denominator, which remains the same, which is 4. So our final answer will be one whole number 6 over 4. If we need to convert this, that'll give us 10 over 4. And this is how I got it. So you pick your denominator and multiply by the whole number, and then you add the numerator to it. So denominator multiplied by the whole number, that's 4 times 1, which is 4, and then plus the numerator, so plus 6, which is 10. So that's how I got the 10 over 4. So that's method 1. Now for method 2, we can convert the mixed fraction straight away to an improper fraction and then work it out from there. So this converted to a mixed fraction will be 4 times 1, which is 4, plus 3, which is 7. So we've got 7 over 4 plus 3 over 4. So remember, if the bases are the same, we just add the numerator, which is 10 over 4. All right, so let's go on to question 26. So you've got two numbers subtracting each other. So you've got 6 minus 5.738. So again, remember, when you're adding, when you're subtracting, the arrangement is always key, right? So you do the arrangement, you stack it one on top of the other, making sure that the columns are in the right positions, and then you work it out from there. So to do that, we start with our 6, and then we put down our 5.783. So remember, we have to use our decimal as a placeholder. And remember what we said earlier so far, any number has a 0.0 attached to it. So we could do 6.0, and then that helps us to match the 5.738 properly. So 5.738. So we use the decimals to match them, right? So we can again put zeros on top, and that's fine. And then we put our subtraction sign here, and then we work it out. Right, so 0 minus 8 is not possible, so we have to borrow from the next, and the next is 0, so we move on to the next, and that's also 0, so we move on to the next. So we borrow 1 from here, and then we have a remainder of 5, and then we've got 10 here, but we need to borrow to get to where we need to get to, so we borrow again, and this becomes 9, and then here becomes 10. But again, we haven't gotten to where we need to get to, so we borrow again from here. So this becomes 9, and then this becomes 10. So that's how we get it. So 10 minus 8 will give us 2. Now for here, we've got 9. So 9 minus 3 will give us 6. And then we've got another 9 minus 7 will give us 2. Then we put our decimal point here. Now we've got 5 minus 5, which is 0. So our final answer is 0.262. So we've got 3.9 times 30. We're multiplying, so we can just put them in the right format. So we've got 3.9 times 30. So this is one way of going about it. Now remember what we said about the decimals. When you're doing the multiplication, it's always best to put the decimals aside and then work it out, and then when you're done, you put it back in. So I'm going to do that. So I know that 3.9 has one decimal place, because after the decimal, there's just one number. So one decimal place, I can just write it here, and then use the absolute value. So I've got 39 times 30. The 0 will multiply all the numbers, and then the 3 would also multiply all the numbers like we do. So 0 times 9 is 0, 3 times 0 is 0, and then we put a dash here, and then we move on to the next number. So 9 times 3 is 27, so we put down our 7, carry forward our 2, and then 3 times 3 is 9, so 9 plus 2 is 11. So now we put a dash underneath, and then we add all of them. So 0 plus dash is 0. 0 plus 7 is 7. 1 plus nothing is 1. 1 plus nothing is 1. So our final answer would be this. But before we put our final answer in there, remember our decimal place is 1, so we put it back. So we put our decimal place here, 1, because it's one decimal place. So we put it here. So our final answer will be 117.0, or just 117. For question 28, right? Again, I'm going to use two methods to solve it. So with the first method, right, we convert this into the mixed fraction and then work it out from there. So one whole number, 1 over 15 converted to a mixed fraction will be 15 times 1, which is 15, plus 1, which is 16 over 15. Now for the 2 over 5, we can convert this fraction into a fraction that has a denominator as 15. And how do we do that? We ask ourselves, what do we have to do to the number 5 to get 15? So we could multiply by 3, for example, because 5 times 3 is 15. And remember, whatever we do to the top, we do to the bottom. So we do the same thing to top as well. So we multiply by 3. And that'll be 3 times 2 is 6, and then over 15. So we can use this. And this is the same as that, really. Because when you think about it, right, if we're given this number and we're asked to simplify it or reduce it into the simplest form, we could have just divided the 6 by 3 to get 2, and then the 15 by 3 as well to get 5. So you see, it brings us back to the same place. So we can use this number. So let's put it in. So we've got 16, 15 minus 6 over 15. So now that we've got the bases to be the same, we can just work out the numerators or the top numbers. So what is 16 minus 6? That'll give you 10 over 15. So this is our final answer. Or we can simplify this further, right? Because 5 can go into 10 2 times and go into this 15 3 times. So you can get 2 over 3 as your final answer, simplified, right? So that's the first method. The second method is a bit tricky because we are subtracting. I wouldn't advise that you use that if you don't understand it, how to go about it. Just converting it to the mixed fraction and working it out is perfect. But for those who would want to learn about various ways of doing this question, let's have another look at it. So again, we've got 15 over 5 minus 2 over 5, right? So remember, we can maintain the whole number and then work out with the fractions. So we've got 1 over 15. And now we know that when we convert this to a number that has 15 at the base, we're going to have 6 over 15, right? Because we did it earlier on here. Right, so this is what you have. Now, when you work this out, right, it's going to be, so we maintain our whole number. Now we've got 1 minus 6, and that gives you minus 5 over 15, right? So this is your answer, but you can't leave it like this because you can't have a mixed fraction that has a negative numerator. So we need to kind of convert it into a mixed fraction, right? So this would be, we know our whole number, this whole number represents 15, right? Because if we are converting it into mixed fraction, it would be 1 times 15, which is 15 minus 5. Okay, so let me just take my time to go over this again. So to convert this into a mixed fraction, it's going to be 1 times 15, right? So this whole number represents 15. So 1 times 15 is 15. So 15 minus 5 will give you 10 over 15. So you see, it brings us back to this part. So now that we've got 10 over 15, we can simplify it into 2 over 3. All right. So let's go on to question 29. So you've been asked to work out 5,413 multiplied by 86. So to work this out, we'll follow the same pattern we've been doing. So the first 6 is going to multiply all of that, and then the 8 is also going to multiply all of that. All right, so let's get right to it. So 6 times 3 is 18. So we write our 8, we carry forward our 1. 6 times 6 is 6. So we add our 1 to it, and that becomes 7. 6 times 4 is 24. And so for that, we write our 4 and carry forward our 20. 6 times 5 is 30. And we add our 2 to it, we get 32. So this is a 4. Let me write it properly. And then the next thing to do is to put a 0, a dash here, and then we move on to the next number. So this time around, this 8 will multiply all of them one by one. So 8 times 3 is 24. So you write down the 4, you carry forward the 2. 8 times 8 is 8 plus 2, and that'll give you 10. So you write your 0, and then you carry forward your 1. Now 8 times 4 is 32. So you add your 1 to it, and that's 33. So you write your 3, and then you carry forward your 3 again. Now 8 times 5 is 4e, plus 3 is 43. So 43. right? And you need to make sure that the columns match so that when you're adding them, you don't get confused. So you put your line underneath and then you add all of them. So 8 plus nothing is 8. 7 plus 4 is 11. So you write your 1, you carry forward your 1. So 1 plus 4 is 5. 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 3 is 6. And then 4 plus nothing is 4. So your final answer will be 465,518. So let's move on to question 30. All right, so I'm going to work it out using two methods. So you've been asked to find 99% of 200. Okay, all right. So now you need to ask yourself, what is 10% of 200? So to find 10% of 200, you just pick your 200 and take away 1 0 from it, and that gives you 20, right? Now, if 10% of 200 is 20, what is 1% of 200? If you think about it, if 10% we took out 1 0, then for 1% we take out 2 zeros, so your answer would be 2. Okay, so if 1% is 2, then to find 99% of 200, we could do 100%, which is 200 minus our 1%. Let me rewrite this. All right, so this is the same as 100% minus 1%. So our 100%, we know 100% is 200, and our 1% we got it as 2. So our final answer will be 198. So 198. So that's one method. So let's look at the second method. So the second method really is just work it out exactly as it is. So 99% is 99 over 100 times 200. Yeah. So these 2 zeros can cancel out, right? So now we've got 99 times 2. So 99 times 2 will be, so all right, so for the second method, we just work out 99% of 200. So 99% is the same as can be written as 99 over 100. Off means times and then 200, right? So now we can just cancel out these 2 zeros, and because the 100 is at the denominator and then the 200 is at the numerator, so it can cancel out. Right, so we get 99 times 2, and then we work it out. So 99 times 2 will be, so 2 times 9 is 18, so we write down our 8, we carry forward our 1, and then 2 times 9 is also 18, and then we add our 1 to it, and that's 19. So our final answer is 198. For question 31, you've been asked to work out 1 over 4 times 2. This can be rewritten as 1 over 4, and then the division can be rewritten as a multiplication. However, when we convert it to a multiplication, we have to adjust, or we have to make some change to this 2. And this is the rule. So when you convert the division to a multiplication, you interchange the 2. So this 2 is the same as 2 over 1, right? So if we change it to a multiplication, it becomes 1 over 2, right? So that's the rule, really. When you're converting a division sign to a multiplication, you interchange the numerator and then the denominator. for that number. And any number is over 1. So if you've got 2 like this, you can write it as 2 over 1, and then you interchange it, then you work it out. So now, our final answer will be, so 1 times 1 will give us 1, and then 4 times 2 will give us a. So our final answer is 1 over a. All right, so let's go on to question 32. So you've been asked to find 9 raised to the power 2 minus 36, all divided by 9. And remember what we did with the powers, right? So this means that 9 raised to the power 2 means that 9 multiplied by itself 2 times, right? So that'll be 9 times 9 minus 36 divided by 9, right? So we can work out the 9 times 9. So 9 times 9 is 81. So we've got 81 minus 36 divided by 9. So 81 minus 36 will give us 45. So we've got 45 divided by 9. And 45 divided by 9 is 5, because 5 goes into 45 9 times. 9 times 45. 9 times 5 is 45. So our final answer will be 5. Alright, so let's go on to the next question. So you've got 1/2 or 1 whole number 1 over 2 times 40. A simpler way of going about this is to just work it out by finding 1 of 40. So 1 of 40. Remember what we said earlier on, any number times 1 is itself. So that's 40. Now 1 over 2 is the same as half, right? So half of 40, what would that be? That would be, half of 40 would be 20. So 1/2, right, of 40 would be the 1 and the half added together. So 40 plus 20, and that'll give you 60. Alternatively, you can work it out like this. So the second method, you can convert this fraction, mixed fraction to an improper fraction. So to do that, the denominator multiplies the whole number. So 2 times 1 is 1 plus 1, the numerator, which is 1, and that'll give you 3 over 2. So 3 over 2 times 4e. Right, so this is the same as 3 times 4e over 2. So this 2 can go into this 40 20 times, or 2 can go into 4 2 times, then you add 0 to it. So you're going to get 3 times 20, and that'll give you 60. So you see, that's another method of working it out. All right, so for question 34, you've been asked to calculate 28% of 650. There's a simpler way to go about this without using a calculator. So first, you can find the 10% of 650. And remember what we did earlier. So 10% of 650 will give us 65, because you just take away the 0, right? Now, if you're asked to find 1% of the same number, 650, right? If 10% is 65, then 1%, you divide it again by 10. And if you divide this by 10, you will get 6.5. So if we know 1% to be 6.5, then 2%, so 2% of the same number will be 6.5 times 2. Right? And or 6.5 plus 6.5, and that will give you 13. If you're wondering how we worked it out, this is how we worked it out. So 6.5 added together, that'll give you 5 plus 5 is 0, carry 1, and then 6 plus 6 is 12 plus 1 is 13. So that's 13.0. Or if you're multiplying 6, you just write 65 times 2, And then after you're done working it out, you put the decimal place in there because it's one decimal place. So 2 times 5 is 10, so 0 carry. And then you carry 1. 6 times 2 is 12 plus 1, and that gives you 130. But it's one decimal place, so you put it back. So one decimal place. So that's how we got the 13. So we know that 2% of 650 is 13. Right. Now, the next thing we need to ask ourselves is, what is 30% of 650? And if you see what I'm trying to do, right, I'm trying to find 30% of 650. And after I've got that, I can subtract 2% from it, because 30 minus 2 will give you 28. So that you get your final answer. So now we know that 10% is 650. So 30% would be 10%, which is 65 times 3. So 65 times 3 will give you 195. And this is how we worked it out. So I'm going to work it out on this side. So 65 times 3. So 5 times 3 is 15. So you write down your 5. You carry forward your 1. Now 6 times 3 is 18 plus 1 is 19. So that's how we got. Right. Or you could do 65, 65, and 65. So 65 plus 65 plus 65 all added together. So that'll be 5, 5, 5, and that's 15. So you write your 1, you carry forward your you write your 5, you carry forward your 1, sorry. And then you've got 6 plus 6, which is 12, plus another 6, which is 18, plus 1, and then that's 19, right? So 30% of 650 is 195, but we want 28%. So 28% is equal to 30% minus 2% of the same number, right? So now our 30% we know is 195, and our 2% we know is 13. So it's 135 minus 13, and that gives you 182. So again, how do we work this out? You write it 195 and then 13, and then you put your subtraction sign here. Now 5 minus 3 will give you 2, 9 minus 1 will give you 8, 1 minus nothing will give you 1. So that's how we got our answer. Yeah, my sheet is a bit messy, but I hope you understand the calculation. So our final answer is 182. Okay. So let's go on to the next question. So question 65. So you've been asked to calculate two mixed fractions, right? But there isn't any similarities between any of the fractions. So what you do is you convert them to improper fractions, and then you work it out from there. Okay, so to convert this into an improper fraction, it's going to be 3 times 4, which is 12, plus 2, which is 14. So you got 14 over 3, and then minus. Now 7 times 1 is 7, and then plus 6 is 13. So 13 over 7. Right. So the next thing you do is to find the lowest common multiple, or the LCM, which is 21. How did we get that? Because the LCM, the multiples of 3 is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 30, and then it goes on and on. Then the multiples of 7 is 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, and then it goes on and on. So you would see that the first number that appears on both of them is 21. So that's how we got it, right? But another trick you can do is to just multiply the two bases together, So the denominator, just multiply them together to get your LCM. So 7 times 3 is 21, right? So you could just multiply them together and that becomes your LCM rather than using this long method. All right, so we know our base to be 21. So 3 goes into 21 7 times. 7 times 14 will be, so when you multiply 7 times 4 is 28. So you write your 8, you carry forward your 2. 7 plus 7 is 7. And then plus your 2 is 9. So it's 98. And then minus, you put your minus. Now 7 goes into 21 3 times. So you've got 3 times 13. Right, we're multiplying it by this number. So, and then you multiply. So 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. So that's 39. So now you work out these two numbers. So you've got 98 minus 39. Right. So 98 minus 39. So 8 minus 9 is not possible. So you have to borrow 1 from the 9. So this now becomes 8. And then this 8 becomes 18. So 18 minus 9 is 9. Because 9 times 2 is 18. Now you've got 8 minus 3. And that gives you 5. So our final answer is 59. And don't forget the denominator. Over 21. So it's 59 over 21. Right. We are on our final question now. So you've been asked to find divide 8,827 minus 97. So to work this out, you pick your 97 and then you ask yourself how many times does it go into the number. So we start with 8, and 8 is too small of a number, so we can't. So we add the next number to it, and that's 88. And 97 is still bigger than 88. So we have to add the third number to it, and then we've got 882. So 97 goes into 882 how many times? Well, the closest number I can think of is 97 multiplied by 9, and let's see what that gives us. So 7 times 9 is 63, so we write down our 3, carry forward our 6. 9 times 9 is 81, plus 6 is 87. So 997 times 9 will give us 873, which is very close to this number. So we take that. So I'm going to put 9 here. Then I'll put 873. Right. So now we subtract. Now to subtract this 2 minus 3 is not possible, so we have to borrow from the next number. So we borrow from this, and this becomes 7, and this becomes 12. So now 12 minus 3 will give us 9. And then we've got 7 minus 7 is 0, 8 minus 8 is 0. Right. So the next thing to do is to add the next number to it. So our next number is 7. We add it to it, and that's 97. And 97 goes into 97 itself 1 times. So our final answer is 91. 91. So that's the end of the session. And I hope you found this tutorial useful.